Thank you so much. You know these forms are important, right? Because we're living in a time of choices. A time when young people are asking, does my votes matter? Does my vote matter? And my answer is simple. Yes, it does. Because when we show up, we don't just fill in bubbles on the ballot. We write the story of this nation's future. But before we can even cast that ballot, there's a first step. We have to be registered. We have to claim our place in the process. We have to raise our hands and say, count me in. But to understand why that matters, you have to understand where I come from. My grandmother was a mixed woman, half black, half Native American, born in 1933. Just her being alive back then was a statement. She grew up in a time when segregation was the law, when drinking from the wrong water fountain can get you in trouble, when the color of your skin decided where you could sit, where you could work, and how you were treated. And she passed right before the 2016 election, but I remember how disgusted she was at the idea of our current administration. And on the other side of my family, my grandparents came from Gilbert, Louisiana. They were sharecroppers. They worked the land but never owned it. They toiled under a system designed to keep them in debt, designed to keep them from rising too high, designed to remind them of their place in a country that promised freedom but didn't deliver it equally. That's the soil I come from. That's the legacy I carry. And it's why I know deep in my bones that registration is not just paperwork, it is power. It is the doorway to everything else. Now, the Republican Party my grandmother remembered wasn't this one. Back then, it was the party that freed the slaves, the party that pulled a broken country back together. Abraham Lincoln, a man who had enough courage and compassion to say that slavery was wrong, even when it wasn't popular, even when it wasn't easy. But today, that same party puts stumbling blocks in place. Stumbling blocks to keep us from registering, stumbling blocks to keep us from voting, stumbling blocks to keep us from dreaming. But here's the thing, stumbling blocks with dedication, compassion, and the strength that we have proven we possess time and time again, we can turn those stumbling blocks into stepping stones. And let's be real, the right to vote wasn't handed to us. People bled for it. People went to jail for it. People died for it. People like John Lewis on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. People like Fannie Lou Hamer, who was beaten just for demanding the right to be heard. People like Martin Luther King Jr., who gave his life for justice and freedom, and they weren't the only ones. Thousands of everyday people whose names we may never know risked their jobs, their safety, their lives, just so that one day we could stand here and register without fear. But history is not just behind us. It's happening right now. Yesterday morning at approximately 7:05 a.m., officers at Delta State University found the body of a young black man hanging from a tree on campus. His name was Trey Reed, just 21 years old, a student from Grenada, Mississippi. The university president spoke about heartbreak. Counselors were called in, classes were canceled, but the truth is, none of that changes the reality. A young man with his whole future ahead of him is gone. And while the investigation continues, while officials say there is no evidence of foul play, we know what the image of a black man hanging from a tree means in this country. We know the pain it revives. We know the fear that it stirs. And it is a reminder that justice is not just some abstract word in a textbook. Justice is the difference between life and death. Justice is the reason why we cannot afford to sit on the sidelines. See, registration isn't just a formality, it is the first battle. If you're not registered, your voice doesn't even make it to the starting line. When you register, you're planting your flag. You're saying, I belong in this democracy. You're saying, you will hear me. And when young people register, we don't just join the process, we change it. We push it, we bend it towards justice. And let's be clear, there are people who don't want us to vote. They don't want us registered. They don't want us anywhere near the process. Because just the other day I was online, Facebook or YouTube, one of the two, and I saw a man using a real story, a woman who used her dog to vote, as his reason why mail-in ballots should be taken away. Now, yes, the story was real, but instead of fixing the problem, they want to use one example to take away mail-in voting from millions of Americans who rely on it. And who are those people? The old lady picking up her prescriptions at Walgreens, a man in a wheelchair who cannot get to other places easily, the workers and business owners who may not be able to get to the polls on election day. And let's be honest, those are usually the ones who are the most liberal. The old woman may care about the prices of prescription drugs. The man in the wheelchair may care about the recent Medicaid controversy. The business owner may care about the tariffs that our current administration has put in place. But all of that could have been stopped had more people voted, especially in our generation. Now I'm going to talk about 2024. Our current president won not by a landslide, not by some big overwhelming victory. He won because turnout slipped, especially with us. Gen Z showed up 53% in 2020, but in 2024 it dropped to 42%. That's a big deal. And it made the difference. In Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, in Arizona, just a few thousand more young voices could have changed the whole map. We had the power. We had the numbers, but too many of us stayed home. They told our grandparents their voices didn't matter. They told our parents their voices didn't matter, and now they're trying to tell us the same thing. But every generation before us proved them wrong. And now it's our turn. In a time where we're seeing the rise of school shootings, political assassinations, and democracy standing at its breaking point, we will one day have to ask ourselves, what did I do? Did I sit back and do nothing? Did I register? Did I help my friends, my family, my classmates register? Did I stand up for righteousness, or did I stay on the sideline? Because history will not only remember what was done, it will remember who stays silent. See, us, Gen Z, we are the biggest, most diverse generation in America. See, because we've already changed culture. We've created movements. We've shifted conversations. But hear me when I say this. Culture without policy fades. Movement without laws stall. Energy without registration and voting power gets ignored. And when we register, we turn culture into power. We turn movements into laws. We turn energy into a future that looks like us. So here's a challenge. Our grandparents marched. Our parents fought. My grandmother endured. My sharecropper grandparents labored. And now it is our turn to do the same. So let's take every obstacle, every barrier, every excuse they try to put in front of us, and let's prove once again that stumbling blocks with dedication, compassion, and strength can be turned into stepping stones. Because when we register, we rise together. The future won't just hear our voice, it'll carry our name. Thank you all so much.